It's Beer O'Clock, and it's the Beer O'Clock show where every week we taste a selected beer and discuss its various merits. And that's our penultimate show for Season 4 and for 2013, and joining me, head down, eyes closed, charging for the finishing line like a man possessed, is my beer mentor, Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm fine. Just like to pick you up on one thing there. It's the end of Season 3, mate. You've kind of jumped ahead of yourself just a little bit. Yes.
It is as well. Oh, bloody hell. That's me thinking about Season 4 so much lately.
Yeah, you're so excited about it.
I am. It's the end of Season 3 and 2013. Also joining us for our special beer this week, which we'll get to in a little bit, is Tom from Signature Brews. Hello, Tom.
Hey, how's it going?
Very well. Thank you very much for joining us. You have kindly delivered a very special beer to us this week, but we'll get to that in just a little while. First, Steve.
Yes.
Your 12 Beers of Christmas thing has taken off a little bit, hasn't it?
It has. Quite the reception to it when we launched it last week. We've had there's at least half a dozen people have jumped straight in and provided us with their 12 beer lists as well. And there's a few more that I know are out there compiling their lists at the moment. So yeah, it seems to be very, very well received. There are some really interesting beers down on some people's lists as well.
Cool. So it's all kicking off on the 20th, is that right?
It is, apart from last week's guest, Glenn, who can't start on the 20th, so he's starting on the 21st, but he's still doing 12 days of beer drinking.
Good man. And he's not having a dry January, so he's having one on January 1st.
And he's having one on January 1st, yeah, because he's not going dry like I am.
Okay, so basically it's 12 beers, one a day. You can have more than one a day if you want to, but just pick 12 beers for 12 days.
It's one feature beer a day, yes.
Starting from the 20th, going all the way through to the New Year, ending on New Year's Eve.
Yep, and just encouraging people to tweet what beers they're drinking with the hashtag 12 beers of Xmas. Not Christmas, 12 beers of Xmas. Very specific about that. It helps me find the hashtags.
And gives you more space for more characters in your tweets.
It does, yes. And that's 12, the number 12 as well.
Bloody hell, mate, all the rules. And you can go to beeroclockshow.co.uk. There's a post there with Steve's list of beers, and you can add your own onto that.
Yes, very exciting.
Yeah. Also in the Christmas theme, by the time you're listening to this, we're either doing final prep for or recovering from our Crimbo Crawl, which is on December 14th. Which is it's basically a pub crawl and an excuse to get drunk with a bunch of like-minded people. So
pretty much.
starting at Camden.
Sums it up.
Starting at Camden and Brewdog. Am I right?
No.
No?
It's not at all. No, it's starting at Gospel Oak Station.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. That's a good thing I'm not heading to Camden on Saturday straight away.
Mate, please read the stuff on our own website.
I don't go to our website, bloody hell. Are we ending up at Tappies after all, or you knocked it off?
I think it's still undecided. Actually, I think it depends on two things: what time we get to the pub before it, and what sort of a state we're in when we get to that pub, as to whether I can then be bothered to go across to Westfield and walk all the way through a shopping centre on a Saturday night to get to a bar.
We all know I'll be tucked up in bed by that point.
I think you'll be long gone. If you, I'll tell you what, mate. If you make Brewdog, I'll be amazed.
Yeah, me too.
Mind you, you're starting there, so we'll catch up with you.
I'm glad we're not starting there because I was thinking I might just skip that one and get the second one, but if we got one before, I'll put up with that.
No, there's two before.
Oh, two before. Cool. Very good. Right, enough of that shit. Let's get on with this week's. Let's get on with this week's featured beer. If you're a fan, then you would have recognised the music at the beginning of the episode, which was a band called Mastodon. Very pleasant bunch of gentlemen who play some endearingly melodic music. And Signature Brew have put together there's been a few of these bands making beers type thing. The one Steve and I know quite well is the Trooper, the Iron Maiden beer, and I think Mumford & Sons done a beer. Or am I lying?
Yep.
They have.
I know. I believe Mumford & Sons did a little beer for a festival they were doing.
Oh,
And,
cool.
and you've done a few as well, haven't you, Tom, at Signature Brew?
Yes, we've done quite a few actually. It was sort of our mission. We started a couple of years ago actually, making making beers with bands of musicians,
Okay,
primarily because we thought music fans deserved a better pint.
very good.
Good shout.
So why don't
Very
you
good.
tell us, first of all, tell us what bands you've done or you've worked with before Mastodon.
Ooh, it's quite a list. We started off in 2011 with the indie band The Rifles, then worked with Craig Frim from the Hold Steady from America, and since then we've worked with Dry the River, Professor Green, Frank Turner, the aforementioned Mastodon, Enter Shikari, and a few others.
So is this the second beer you've done with Mastodon?
No, it's the first.
It's the first
It's
beer.
been quite a long process working with those guys. We actually started the idea and the whole plan in the summer of 2012 at Leeds when those guys were playing over there, and we did a tasting session with them backstage, which was eventful. Um, and
I can imagine.
if anyone tells you rock and roll's dead, they're lying. They haven't done a tasting session with Mastodon at Leeds. And since then, we've sort of honed the recipe over time. The guys really care and even more importantly know about their beer. So they had an idea going into the tasting session, and that sort of developed, and we did a trial brew, which we kegged and took to Download Festival where the guys were playing this summer, and poured some pints with those guys and got them to try it and see what they thought and tweaked it a little bit. So it's just exactly what they wanted.
Okay, was it the guys themselves that wanted a? Because this is a double black IPA. This beer, it's called Black Tongue, 8.3% ABV. Was it their decision to go with the double black IPA?
Yeah, we had some preconceptions going into the tasting session on what kind of style of beer they wanted, but Braun, the drummer, who is out of all of them most passionate about his beers, and whilst he travels the world with his band, he tries to try a lot of global beers, and he described his wishes for it to be a palate crusher,
Oh, right.
which I hope we've delivered. And a black IPA seemed the right way to go, and the beer matches the band's style as well, quite suitably.
Okay, so I will admit.
that this will.
Go on, Steve.
Sorry, mate. I just wanted to jump in there because this it's quite interesting because I went to this beer and music tasting matching evening a few weeks back that was hosted by Pete Brown,
Right.
and he was matching specific beers with different styles of music and suggesting that the beer complemented the music and the music made a difference to the taste. It's quite interesting there that you made the comparison of this beer to the Mastodon sound because, as you say, they are quite. I think it's probably fair to say they're fairly brutal in their sound. So it'll be interesting to see what the beer comes across like.
Yeah, and I've actually been to one of Pete Brown's music and beer matching events in the past,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and he actually he cares about the subject and actually believes and speaks of the science that there is actually a link between the two. So if you drink a beer that matches the music, it actually enhances the whole experience. And we believe the same. If you go to see one of your favourite bands and get given a pint of yellow insipid lager, then it will make it worse. Whereas if you get given a beer that the artist cares about and believes matches their sound, then it can only enhance the experience.
And then also when you've got a management team like Iron Maidens as well that seemed to ensure that the only beer that was left available on Sunday afternoon at Download last year was Trooper, it works particularly well.
Yeah. I mean, I have to be quite politically correct here because I think Robinson's pulled some strings together there that we couldn't quite pull with our artists who are also playing at Download. But yeah, they did well.
It's a shame that we hadn't met you before then because obviously we were at Download last year and it would have been great to have come and sampled the first trial of this beer backstage with Mastodon.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. If we did know, we'd have. I mean, we didn't realise there were many beer connoisseurs or fans out there. At the festival, there were awful lot of bands willing to try the beer.
Yeah, I bet there were.
No shortage.
What beers do you do at Signature other than the band-related ones, or is that all that you do?
No, our main goal is to sort of work with bands and as I said before, get good beers into music venues. But we do have a cask range that aren't associated with bands or musicians, but are sort of music related and have a music backstory for each one. So we sort of rotate them week on week. So for example, last week was a stout called Black Vinyl Stout, and we've done a red ale called Red Wedge after the 1980s Music Collective, and each one's got a story, and we do cask versions of our artist beers as well. So
Okay, cool.
Where do you sell those, mate? Are they widely available in bars?
We mainly we do London distribution ourselves. That's a lot of where the sales are, but if the demand's out there, we try and sell them around the country through wholesalers. It's relatively small scale production at the moment. I'll brew once or twice a week. Basically any beers that I want to brew. It's quite a selfish project, but it's actually quite good for us to sort of get our name out there in a world where we wouldn't usually through our band beers.
And is it just you? Are you the only brewer there, or have you got a team?
I've got a diligent team of helpers, but usually it's just me. And I do like to take their opinions on board.
Shall we stop yapping and get into the beer?
Yeah, please.
All right. So, say no more. Rock and roll. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, that looked quite thick coming out of the bottle.
It's certainly a bloody black IPA. I tell you what, none more black than that.
Yeah.
Jesus. I can't even get any light through it.
Yeah, that is, isn't it? It's as quite literally as black as the night.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go down the list. Right, double black IPA. Let's tick off the black then. I reckon. It's a lovely aroma on it.
Yeah, what aroma is that? Kind of.
It's very fruity. A little bit of roastedness coming through at the end.
Yeah, a tiny little bit.
Smells lovely though. I've got a much bigger hit of an aroma now it's into the glass. When I first cracked the bottle, I wasn't getting anything at all. And it's really come alive in the glass. Let's do this.
Looks like Tom's already been into this.
I think with the exception of the I'm quite nervous because with the exception of the homebrew special that we did, this is the first time we've actually why they've been on the show with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's quite a surreal experience. I mean, we've been reviewed in the past, and I've done interviews in the past, but never combined the two. So I was pretty nervous as well because I was thinking, what if I hate it?
Well, if you'd listened to the show before, I'll either say it tastes like beer, and that's it, or
that's the worst review.
Or it's not always derogatory. Sometimes it's complimentary for me, or I'll say that it's far too strong and I can't finish it. So let's get going.
I could get both.
That's nice. That's got a nice smoothness to it.
Mm.
Not as hoppy as I thought it would be. Considering it's a
No, it was only bottled on Thursday, so there will be some conditioning time, and it will change over time a little bit. But I think the sort of key flavours are pretty obvious at the moment. It's quite blackcurranty, a bit more than I ever expected.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I couldn't quite pick the flavours that I was getting from it.
Mm.
It's quite thick tasting as well. See, Tom, you haven't listened to the show, so you don't actually understand how I review beer. Which I come out with things like this beer tastes red and stuff like that. So
layman's terms, it's
exactly.
Which I actually prefer.
So the whole point of this show when we first started was that I don't know anything about beer, and Steve would teach me during the process of recording the show. So it's getting to the point where I can say something tastes malty or something tastes fruity. This tastes nice and smooth and a little bit hoppy. Stephen, you're back.
Have you started without me?
I had one sip.
There was some interim chats whilst you were down.
Okay, I think there's something about avid listeners will know that whenever we have a guest on, my internet always seems to go down for some reason. I don't know what it is. But I'm back. I'm here.
Have you tasted the beer yet?
No. Am I on catch up now?
Have a sip.
Have you? You haven't been doing it on your own, have you, Mark?
I had to fill in the time. We have a guest.
That's a first. Hang on. So let's have a sip.
Have a sip. Go on.
There's there's an initial hit of sweetness, followed by some real citrusy, punchy flavours in there. Gives way to an initial roasted bitterness, and now I'm getting a real bitter kick right at the end of it. It all comes together quite nicely though.
Yeah, I was saying to Tom while you were offline that it's very smooth, but it wasn't as hoppy as I thought it would be. But now that I took a larger mouthful, it's like, fucking hell. It is quite hoppy. Well, but it's still really smooth for such a strong beer.
For 8.3%, if this was put in front of you and you had a sip, you wouldn't put it at 8.3% initially. No. I think that's quite a deceptive taste to it.
Yeah. 4 or 5 bottles later, you probably would think it is.
I imagine you would, yes. Because I was thinking when you were saying earlier, Tom, about the band had quite an input into it, and that they really wanted to tweak it and play with it. So I was expecting that real American influence in it that you get from some of the big American breweries where they massively hop their beers and you're left with a really dry, bitter finish to it. From the hops, but what you seem to have done is you seem to have taken that, but somehow turned it into a smooth finish.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and going into the process, I thought Braun and the guys would want to take their beer that way, but I think they had a bit more of a worldly view on what kind of beers they like, because they spend so much of their time on tour all over the place. They actually prefer a lot of different beers rather than those just massive sort of West Coast beers that you get in America.
There's almost so I was just taking another sip there while you was chatting. There's almost a barley wine style finish to it. Right at the end there, it's got that kind of thickness that you'd get from a barley wine of a much higher percent.
Mm.
You must be quite pleased with this.
Yeah, it's come out how I'd hoped. It's got quite a prominent blackcurrant flavour, which was the one thing I didn't expect to be so prominent, but it's not a disappointment. And
excuse the maybe ignorant question, how does that come about? How do you get the blackcurrant flavour? Because obviously you've not added any essence of blackcurrant to it.
No.
That's just by a marrying of the ingredients.
Yes, and to a certain extent we only tweaked the hops very slightly between the two brews, so it just some sort of infusion there created it. I used a different brewery the second time round. Whether that's got any influence, I don't know. Apart from that, it tastes as I expected and quite similar to the first brew, the test batch we did.
And what are the hops that you've used in there, mate?
We used New Zealand hops, Mosaic and Magnum.
Okay.
Good old Kiwi hops.
Yeah.
They're quite popular at the moment, aren't they? The New Zealand hops.
Yeah, I've brewed quite a few beers recently with them to the point where the other guys are suggesting perhaps we ought to remember where we're from, but
try something else. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. We do some work with a brewery called Honest Brew, and Andrew, one of the guys who started that, is from New Zealand, and I think some of his influence must have rubbed off on me at some point.
We're going to be featuring them next season. Actually, we're going to be going down and having a chat to Andrew about what he does. Mark's got that look on his face that says, "Are we?"
Whatever you say, mate. I look forward to it. I'll just nod. Oh dear, this is a very very nice beer, Tom. It's much stronger than I would normally go. I'm more for my 4% ABV golden ale type stuff. I'm not a huge IPA fan. Definitely not a huge black IPA fan, although we've had some black IPAs on the show before that I've quite liked, like the Thornbridge, what's it called?
Raven,
and some others. But this is an incredibly smooth, has a nice, it's like a gradual hoppiness that kind of takes over your mouth and then it's got you by the nuts type hoppiness to it. But I really like the maltiness in it. I'm not a huge fan of malty beers, but the maltiness in it, it's got the nice sweetness, then the bitterness, and it kind of just settles really nicely on your palate.
Yeah.
Well done, you.
Well, I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, no, it's really good, and I think we were quite close to not getting this on the show this week, weren't we?
Yes.
I think you were having some problems with it conditioning last week.
It wasn't so much the conditioning. It was we had a fault with a filter at the bottling plant we were using, and had to come up with a contingency plan very fast. The contingency plan was me gathering together a group of willing volunteers to hand bottle 2,000 litres of beer.
Goodness.
So we're recording this on Monday, and you only bottled it on Thursday. Is that right?
Yes.
So this is about as fresh a beer as we've ever had, I think.
Yeah, I think, and as I sort of mentioned earlier, it will condition over time, and improve, and it'll be actually quite an interesting process to see how it changes, and quite rewarding. But on the basis it tastes good fresh out of the bottle, then that's always a good sign.
Yeah, it does taste incredible.
And it's very sweet and smooth on the belch as well.
I tried to stifle mine, so I didn't do it in the microphone.
Sometimes you've just got to let it go, mate. It helps with the tasting, I find. You get a little bit of blowback there.
I didn't know podcast etiquette.
There's none on here.
Anything goes on this show, mate.
So is it fair to say, because I know that I was under the impression that this is a bit of an exclusive, I'm going for world exclusive. In fact, surely we've got to be the first people in the world reviewing this beer.
I believe so.
Get in.
I don't think any of the fans have received their bottles yet because it was so close to the mark getting them out. So they've all gone out today, and they will get them tomorrow and Wednesday. And I believe Dave, who does our online stuff and wholesale, has ensured them all they are receiving it imminently, which is quite important. But yeah, we haven't done any interviews or reviews, and we haven't sent anyone the beer, so we are the few that have drunk it, actually.
Cool.
Brilliant. I'm happy with that. So just as we're reaching the end of season 3, I think we've reached the pinnacle of our podcast. We've got a world exclusive, ladies and gentlemen.
It's us three, everyone at Signature Brew, and the work experience boy who helped us bottle it on Thursday.
So have the Mastodon boys actually tasted this final product yet? Or
there's a case on the way over to them in America. So no.
Right, they tasted the pre-tweaked version, didn't they? And this is the post-tweaked
yes.
version. Yeah,
absolutely. It's actually quicker to get beer to Holborn than it is to the US.
Fancy that.
So do you get caught up in the complexities of copywriting and things when you're getting into putting a band's name on a beer?
Generally not. Beer doesn't fall under most artists' merchandising deal.
Oh, okay.
We can do it, away from that, which is quite useful. We couldn't, then make T-shirts with the beer logo on because I think we'd then get in trouble.
Yeah.
But it's generally been very easy to work with all of our artists and their management. and some of the artists we work with, their managers have been not only helpful but crucial in the success of the beer and Signature Brew.
So what has been your most successful beer to date then, out of all the artists you've worked with?
I mean, it depends how you grade success. Each project's quite different because the artists are different, and you could say, making a tiny beer with a small artist, if you get it into every venue and get the fans drinking the beer, then that's a success.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, we've had beers that have gone on to go and get listed in supermarkets, which is again a good sign.
Your Professor Green one's just popped up in my local Morrison's.
Yes, yeah, that's the one that's in Morrison's, which is good. And if music fans go and buy it and drink it before a gig, then good. That's what we want.
Do you find it's very much based on the genre and the artist in terms of how the sales then go? Are some beers prove to be more popular because the artist is bigger?
Well, to a certain extent, yeah. I mean, you obviously find the bigger the artist, the bigger the fan base, but then each fan base is quite different. Professor Green's got quite a young fan base, and we often tailor the beer to that. So when the tasting sessions go on with the artists, they're looking for a beer that they like, but they're also, most of them are looking for a beer that their fans will like too. Some of the artists don't give a shit. They just want a beer they like, which I quite enjoy. But yeah, generally we try and tailor it to their sort of fan base, so they'll like it, and I think we've got it right nearly every time. The fans would tell you, not me.
And the artists that come to you, do they come to you because they're a fan of beer, or do they come to you because their record company has seen an opportunity for another way to market the product of the artist?
We're quite particular about which artists we work with, and we really quite hammer down the point that they need to not only care about beer, but the project they're working on, and the fact that we get them involved in every stage of the process is a reason for that. They can't just put their name to it. They have to come to the tasting session. They have to come and brew the beer with us. So when they go on tour, they haven't just got a beer to get pissed with, but they can actually tell their fans why it exists and why it tastes like it does, and it will taste like a beer that they've created, and they can not only talk eloquently about it, but be quite proud of something that they've created themselves.
And what's next for you guys? Is there something else in the pipeline at the moment?
Yeah, there's always something quite exciting. We're working on Sam and Dave usually tell me how much I can say, and they haven't today, so I'm potentially going to get in trouble.
So we've established there's only about 6 people that actually listen to the podcast. So I wouldn't...
we're working on a fruit beer with Scroobius Pip, which I'm quite excited about, and is another project which I think could be awesome, and it's something I've never done. Is a fruit beer, so we've done some experimenting. Pip's come down to our workshop and got involved and brewed a beer with me, and we're going to condition it with different fruits and see what the results are. There's always differing levels of experimentation with the brews we do, and we're quite experienced, so we sort of know what's going to happen. But with a fruit beer, we're erring on the side of caution and seeing if it works first.
Quite wise, I think. Yes.
And then beyond Scroobius Pip, I think we'll have a new artist in the summer of next year that'll be quite big.
Oh.
You're obviously not sure whether you can say anything about that one, so you're hedging your bets there, clearly.
Yeah. I just saw a bollocking pop into my horizon.
Can you share a genre, maybe?
No.
Okay.
Oh.
See, that's about as far as my Jeremy Paxman-esque skills go in terms of trying to squeeze an answer out of you.
Well, I felt well grilled.
So, Tom, out of all the beers that you've done, which one? This is going to be on the spot question. Which one's your favourite? And I know they're all your
Get
babies.
asked that quite a lot, actually. That's my stock answer. Is treat them as you treat your children equally.
But you can ignore the ugly one.
yeah. I like the prettiest. Obviously we do like them all, and each has been quite rewarding to work in differing ways. So, Snakepit with Enshikari was a great project and still is, because they really support it and it grows from strength to strength. And that was the first lager we produced, so I'm quite proud of that. We started out as ale fans, and we liked our pale ales and things like that, and we never thought we'd do a lager. So when those guys came along and the tasting session ended up going to that direction, we didn't know what to think, but we created something that is actually really interesting and nothing like any of the lagers on the market. So quite proud of that one. The Vienna lager we did with Hospital Records as well is another one that just is so easy to drink and so good, and one of those ones where you've just seen all the fans who don't usually drink beers like that, not only buying it but buying it again and again. It's quite rewarding and it's pleasing. Favourite beer though, I'd probably say is we did a double IPA with a band called Dry the River the summer of 2012. We brewed it at London Fields Brewery. I've subsequently brewed it in a couple of other places. That was massive, tropical fruity beer, right up my street. A bit of a vanity project, but it was brilliant. We actually brewed a small batch for the independent record market at Spitalfields last weekend, and I was hoping to take a few bottles home and enjoy them later, but all of the cases sold out instantly. So
must be doing something right then.
That was both pleasing and disappointing.
So, Tom, you've mentioned a couple of times about the beers being drunk by the fans. Do you try and ensure then that when the bands are playing gigs that their beers are available in the bar
Yes.
at the gig venues? Is that part of the deal?
Yeah, that's our bread and butter. If we don't do that, then it's we don't what we're doing. So the bands we work with are very supportive. So when they're launching a tour and putting together a tour, we know all the dates before any of the fans do. So we can be starting to put the work in with the venues and speaking to the right people about how to get either the bottles or better still get kegs on the bar. And initially, when we started Signature Brew, we thought that we'd end up putting the beer in the pub around the corner from the venue because of the way that the big breweries monopolise the bars in the big venues. But we've been really pleasantly surprised with how we've managed to get beer in a lot of big venues around the UK, to the point where we've been and got we try and go to as many as possible, because speaking to the staff and conveying the message and why we're doing this is really quite important, because then they pass it on to the fans themselves. And there's nothing more rewarding than moving kegs of Carlsberg out the way to put your kegs on.
Absolutely.
That reminds you of why you're doing it, and on the few occasions that's happening, it's been worthwhile.
Brilliant.
Cool. So, Steve, I finished mine.
Yeah. Mine went long ago.
That was a good beer.
So I kind of wished I wasn't giving the other one away as a competition prize. Because otherwise,
let's talk about that now then, because now you've let the cat out. We are giving a bottle of Signature Brew's Black Tongue Double Black IPA, one bottle away. And Stephen, how do they win it?
How do I win? Okay, so this is going to be fastest finger first type thing. First person to tweet us the answer to the question gets the beer. It's as simple as that. So Mastodon released a new album this week called Live at Brixton. When was it recorded? And I want the date, the month, and the year. First person to tweet that to us at Beer O'Clock Show gets the beer. Simple as that.
So we'll I hope you don't mind me interrupting, but we'll send a 4-pack to the winner. And so,
wow!
So you can drink your second bottle.
There you go. Crack the other one open, mate.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. I'm sure the winner will as well.
Yeah.
That'll be coming from my other account now. Before the show's actually released.
I'll send you the invoice.
Right,
seriously, Tom, thank you for that. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great. Steve, let's get your final comments on this beer, mate.
I really enjoyed it, and I'm not just saying that because Tom's here. It came across as a really lovely aroma to start with. Not what you'd expect from a black IPA. I was expecting more of the roasted hints from the aroma. That fruitiness came through on the initial taste. Little bit of citrus in there, a little bit of tropical fruits, giving way to a lovely subtle roasted finish, and then with probably a finishing really strong but smooth bitter aftertaste. A really enjoyable beer. Really didn't feel like 8.3%, and I really wish I'd slowed down drinking it. I would easily, if I was scoring that's probably up there as a 4 out of 5 for me.
Very good. I found it, like I said earlier, it's stronger than the beers I normally like. I'm not a big fan of double IPAs, but had really nice smooth malts, really nice subtle sweetness to it. Very hoppy on like the secondary stage of your palate, but very smooth, very nice. I recommend.
I recommend it actually. It's don't look at it cynically. I would say as a blatant banned cash in on the beer market or vice versa. I think actually there's clearly some skill gone into brewing that, and clearly from what Tom said to us tonight, the band care about what's gone into it as well. Yeah. I would recommend this, and I would say give it a go.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well done, Tom. You should be proud.
Yes.
Cheers, guys.
Very well done.
Right. Any final questions for our guest, Stephen?
No, I think I've exhausted all of my questions tonight. I've quite enjoyed this evening. Actually, it's been quite an interesting discussion about, because I'm quite interested in the whole Signature Brew setup and what they've set themselves up to do. It sounds quite exciting.
It is indeed. You can find Signature Brew at signaturebrew.co.uk. You can buy their beers online. Do you have all your beers online to buy?
Yes.
You do?
Apart from the odd seasonal brew that we'll only do at special events or something.
But you got all the artist beers there, haven't you?
Yes, all the artist beers are available.
So go on and peruse their selection. signaturebrew.co.uk. We've had Tom with us tonight. Thank you very much, Tom, for joining us.
Cheers, guys. My pleasure. It's been fun.
Very good. Steve, anything else you want to add, mate?
Just to say that we obviously had to shift our beers around a little bit towards the end of the season, because we had the big 50th episode the other week, so we did the beer that we were going to do at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. and then we've had a couple of weeks where we said we weren't going to tell people what we were drinking at the end of the season, but I think tonight's the night that we should tell people what we're drinking next week, because it ties in quite nicely with your comment along the lines of, I don't like high ABV black IPAs, because our end of season beer is a black high ABV IPA in a 660ml bottle. Those fans that have been with us since the end of season 2 will remember how much we love doing the big bottles of beer and how Mark attacked the bottle of Unhuman Cannonball at the end of last season. Next week, because we've had the whole American craft beer thing going on this season, to finish off season 3, we are going to be drinking a Stone beer, and it is Stone Sublimely Self-Righteous Black IPA, 8.7% in a big bottle. That's our end of season beer.
Sorry, what's
and I imagine.
What's the ABV on it?
No, not. It's 8.7.
Oh, is that all? Okay.
Yeah. It's nowhere near the dizzy heights of the 12% that we did at the end of last season, but it's still a good end of season beer to finish on.
Down in 10. I'm saying it now.
Please try and appreciate it just for a little bit.
Humour at least.
Yeah. Right, so that's next week. That's our final show next week.
It is before we take a well-earned break over Christmas and in January, and then we'll be back in February with season 4.
And we'll have some news next week about what Steve's planning for January and
Yes.
how you can all help. But until then, thank you very much, Tom.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Thanks, Mark. Highlight the week.
As always.
As always.
And I'll talk to you next week. Cheers.